Please join me in the salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If you haven't signed the register in the back of the room, we would appreciate it if you'd do so. Roll call of the board.
Ms. Dahl. Here. Mr. Hernandez.
Present.
Mr. Jaramillo.
Here.
Ms. Quintero.
Present.
Mr. Crouch.
Present. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
As submitted.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dahl.
We're on top of
Yes.
things.
Mr. Hernandez.
Aye.
Mr.
Right,
Jaramillo.
head cold.
Ms. Quintero.
Yes.
Mr. Crouch.
Aye. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is board comments. Mr. Almio, our visitor from up north.
Is simply awesome. I had a chance to experience a full solar eclipse yesterday, and I'll tell you what, it was all the above. It was awesome, airy, and spectacular. And if you have a chance to go to Texas in 2024,
2024.
I highly encourage and recommend it. And I'd like to give a shout out to our first responders from our last meeting. Mr. Crouch, Mr. Baca, who else? Who else was out there to chase the dogs away? Put their life at risk. Mr. Marcos. Mr. Morales. You know what? Because I could see Lori from here, Ms. Portillo, Mrs. Portillo. And if you'd have seen the look on her face. And I thought the doors were actually closed. But the dogs were, I mean, it was an airy feeling.
Intense.
So thank you all. And shout out to all the folks that are going to be acknowledged tomorrow morning. Kudos to all of them for all their hard work and all their effort this year. Thank you.
Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Crouch. I am excited that we're going to be welcoming my colleague, State Representative Charlene Fernandez, to Gallego this week. She has a site visit scheduled, and one of the things that I know is happening over the next couple months is take your legislator to school, where teachers are offering their classrooms with permission of their principals, of course, to host a legislator so they can see what really goes into planning an entire day, so that legislators get an understanding of what it's like to have a classroom full of kindergartners through 12th graders and understand all the hard work that teachers have to put in every day. So I'm excited that we're welcoming from LD4 all the way from Yuma, Representative Fernandez.
Ms. Quintero.
So, Friday is the day off for teachers, right? So if there's nothing, no, not teachers, just the children?
Yeah, just the children.
Okay, well.
In service.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry, teachers. Well, if anybody else who's not with their paperwork, Upward Bound Children will be cleaning out the area on Bill B inside the pool area and outside of the pool, Sunnyside pool area, with me from 8 to noon. Anybody want to help and chip in, visit with the kids, feel free. So, thank you.
Ms. Dong.
First, I want to give a shout out to Miss Monk from the Sierra 2-8 school because of getting her students excited last year of doing some community projects, some civic engagement, and going and talking to and sending letters to Councilman Richard Fimbres to get some speed bumps put in place there in front of the school. And it happened, it was done. So the students got really empowered, knowing that they had a voice in the community. So that was really, really neat. And she gave a lot of kudos to Mr. Fimbres, Councilman Fimbres, for doing so. And I do too. He's done a lot for our community in Sunnyside district as well as the entire community. But I think she also deserves a lot of kudos for what she did to inspire those students, and as she does every single day as a teacher here in the Sunnyside district. So I think that's a really neat inspirational story that she had. Another inspirational story for me was one of our own, Patrick Robles, challenging the governor to come to our schools and see, our schools and see what it is that we do, and come to the day and see what the teachers do, what the staff does, and what the students do. And I thought his letter was extremely well written. It came out in the Arizona Daily Star as an editorial, challenging the governor to come. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I did go to the governor myself. Well, he didn't see me behind the poster card saying, "Pay our teachers," but he was here in town at one of the Math and Science Academy schools up on Sunrise. But unfortunately, he didn't make it back down south here. But hopefully someday we can convince him, because we have had many state politicians at that level, and superintendents of education come to our schools. So I thought it was cool that that Patrick Robles took that initiative, and hopefully, we also get some other people asking for the state superintendent and for the governor to come down to Sunnyside, because I'm very proud of what we do here, the hard work that everybody puts in. And I would love it if he would to come down and take a look at that.
Thank you. Last Thursday night was a televised game of Sunnyside versus the Nogales Apaches, and Sunnyside prevailed, which gave me a lot of pleasure over with some of my Nogales friends. Yesterday was a very good session put on by the Pima County Superintendent of Schools on mandatory reporting. It was for administrators, and I thought it was, as a board member, I felt I learned a lot about it, and
Was that yesterday or today?
that was today. It was today. And it was very, very good session. So I have a much better understanding, I think, of mandatory reporting and the burdens that are involved with it. The other thing I'd like to say is, this has been one of the smoothest startups of school since I've been involved, and it's been really, really done well. And I kept holding my breath, but everything has gone very well. So I want to congratulate everybody that works in the district in any capacity for making it all work. So thank you very much. Mr. Holmes, Superintendent's Report.
President Crouch, members of the governing board, members of the audience. I'd like to do our standard recognition with our superintendent's report, welcome everyone, but first and foremost, recognizing our Sunnyside teacher, Mr. Ulleda, who's our high school science teacher, has been nominated as a finalist for the National Science Foundation 2017 Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. He'll be honored this fall at the Arizona Science Teacher Association National Conference in October. And those of you that know Mr. Ulleda, couldn't go to a better man. He does wonderful work with our children every day. Thank you, congratulations, Mr. Ulleda, and we won't see you necessarily at the conference. Maybe it depends where it's at. So we'll try to see if we can make our rounds if it's local or not. We also have, in collaboration with the Office of Tucson Mayor Jonathan Rothschild, those of you in Sunnyside High School will host the Mayor's College and Career Resource Fair on August 28th between 9 and 2 p.m. The event will be a combination assembly and resource fair with participation from U of A's early academic outreach, Pima Community College, Earn to Learn, JTED, and others. And as you know, the mayor's really put out this challenge of mentoring opportunities, and so we're looking at ways in which we can tie mentors to our students as well. So I thank the mayor for reaching out and wanting to have our district participate in many of the initiatives that he's doing citywide. We have our Parents as Teachers program there at Los Niños. So it's time to make learning fun once again as Parents as Teachers program gears up for another year of learning. Events like Stay and Play encourage families to interact with their kids to promote child development and language acquisition. And Parents as Teachers was featured this month in the United Way's newsletter. So it's nice to recognize great programs and Ms. Joan Katz for the wonderful work she does. Thank you, Joan. We also have our Battle of the Building kicking off next week at Challenger Middle School in partnership with TEP, Tucson Water, Midstate Energy, Tucson Clean and Beautiful, and others. So students from our 3 schools will compete to see which site can demonstrate the greatest energy savings through the changes in everyday energy practice. And I believe it's Elvira Challenger, and we got Ms. Marsha Flores from Star Academic High School. So Ms. Flores, we'll see, okay, game on, game on. All right, great.
Don't be looking in the dark.
Candlelight reading class. And lastly, we have a wonderful Cheyenne Kindness Project at Liberty Elementary. The project was at full display this morning at Liberty Elementary second grade classroom. Students receive items such as books, toys, snacks. The real mission of the Cheyenne Kindness Project is to serve underprivileged, at-risk, and medically fragile children by providing fun and needed gifts while promoting and teaching kindness and acceptance. Just the wonderful work that this organization does. They really have taken Sunnyside District under their wing and provided just so many wonderful gifts that every time I see it, it just it's just heartwarming to see what they do for us. I want to thank all those involved with Shine Kindness and the work they do for our students. We're going to try to pilot a middle school this year, so we're trying to figure out what that could look like over a period of time and think about kindness at the middle school level. So we're brainstorming a few ideas of what that could look like. So I want to thank them for reaching out for another model that we're going to test here in Sunnyside. So thank you, Cheyenne Kindness. That concludes our superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. And we have no recognitions tonight, correct?
It is?
Yesterday.
Oh, happy birthday.
I had an eclipse.
You had an eclipse. Wow. That was special.
Thank
You
you.
had a special candle.
It was special. Thanks.
At call of the audience, we have Deputy Ryan Powell.
Yeah, on behalf of the Pima County Sheriff's Department, we really appreciate our relationship that we've had with the Sunnyside School District. And as you know, we've been here, this is our third school year now. In 2015, we started the school resource unit with the Sheriff's Department like none other here in Pima County. It's a free service. We're not by grants or anything. It's a unit that's self-contained within that we provide for you. The Sheriff's Department has a three-part mission on that, and the mission is to provide the resources for you through training and partnerships and everything with your district level, the school level, and we provide a lot of training back and forth. We also, our second part of the mission statement is to have that law enforcement element in the school as far as emergency management and the unfortunate situations where we do have to call the police and make your mandatory reports and stuff. And the third is the mentoring with the kids, and that's our three levels that we strive at. With this new program, we've had difficulties throughout the county implementing this, but I want to let you know that Sunnyside is by far welcomed us in arms. I've never, in my career, 18 years, have felt more welcome, part of family. I'm really happy to be your school resource officer, and it's getting brighter. Like I said, I secure these programs. There's going to be one superintendent's going to be putting one of my programs up here pretty soon. I have a good feeling, so it's going really well. So I want to thank you again. Thank you, opening your arms, opening your doors. I mean, we have an open door policy with Steve Holmes, and the communication is really, really good. So I just want to thank you. I just wanted to make that report real quick, and if you have any questions, please call me. I'm always available 24/7, because I'm your resource officer. You got the same face every day. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Yolanda Herrera.
Good evening, everybody. I was kind of hoping you would sing Becky happy birthday, but
That's not too late.
You lead us.
I'm a Marilyn Monroe, right? Happy birthday
Day to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Becky. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. As the older sister, I can do that. Good evening, board members, Mr. Chair, Mr. Holmes, staff, and community members. My name is Yolanda Herrera, a lifelong Southside resident. I would like to share some upcoming events, beginning with GAIN, Getting Arizona Involved in Neighborhoods. It's Arizona's National Night Out event happening on October 19th, hopefully at Mission Manor, if I get all my paperwork in right, from 6 to 8. Contact me if you would like to set up a resource table. DJ Rich will help provide the entertainment. United Way Days of Caring, 1021 Sunnyside neighborhood will be participating in about 4 different projects. You can sign up on the United Way's website, or again, contact me. I encourage everyone to participate and/or create your own event. We heard a lot of different issues at the meet and greet with Mr. Mercado last Sunday, and trash seems to be an issue at a lot of the schools. Heads up, Cyclovia on 12th Avenue will take place 10/29 from 10 to 3, so 12th Avenue will be closed to traffic for the safety of those participating in bikes, walking, skating, just on foot traffic. Lastly, all are invited to the Community Teach-In on 8/27 this Sunday at Abrams Public Health Center to help quash all the misinformation out there. And be aware, if you are a presenter, there will be many listening, and remember, it's all about perception. This is for community awareness and to help find health resources. The Unified Community Advisory Board will host a resource table. Thank you so very much.
What time will it be?
And I do have some flyers, so. What time? It's going to be
1.
from 1 to 5. So I'm going to leave the flyers here, and those that are left over, you can. And I don't know if you want to put some of this information on the Sunnyside website.
Ms. Dawn?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is athletic update with Ms. Gallegos.
President Crouch, members of the board, I have Ms. N.J. Otter who will be making the presentation.
Good evening. President Crouch, Superintendent Holmes, members of the governing board. I'm happy to have the opportunity tonight to give my first presentation to you as your Director of Career and Technical Education on the topic of high school athletics. In response to the questions that you asked at our last board meeting, I wanted to take you back 3 years to a time when a proposal was made, unfortunately, where we realized that our budget was such that we were going to have to request an increase in high school athletic participation fees from $25 to $60 per athlete per season. In that board presentation, because I took this slide that's going to come up in just a moment, from that board presentation, we also talked about making sure that we provided support to multi-sport athletes and that we also provided support for students with financial needs. So I think that there is definitely a need to clarify what that support looks like. So at that time, what was in the presentation and has been in place is that athletes who participate in all 3 seasons will be financially responsible, go ahead to the next one please, for a maximum of $150 is the cap for any one student athlete right now. I did do a little data checking from last year with the help of our academic compliance officers and their program assistants. We had 26 athletes in the school district last year who did participate in 3 separate sports, so multi-year athletes. What we didn't clarify specifically was a maximum family contribution. What it said in that past presentation was that we would continue to work with families who had multiple students involved in activities. And so I'd like to make a recommendation at this time that we say no family shall be charged more than $220 for athletic participation. Did some looking around at other school districts. Just off the top of my head, TUSD's is $65 per sport. They capped it at $250 for any one family. We did want to come in a little bit underneath that, especially since $60 per student is our per season rate. And then I just want to reiterate that we have tried to be very clear with our coaches, that if students or families come to them and say that they have an issue with being able to pay the fee, that conversation gets turned over. In the past, it was to the athletic director. Now it's to the assistant principal, who will meet with the family, meet with the student to work out either a payment plan, which is sometimes really what families are asking for. Do I have to pay it all up front? Can I give you part of the money right now? Or some alternative means to contribute to the athletic program. And that has in the past looked like working snack bar, helping with fundraisers, helping with game management, keeping the clock, calling lines for volleyball. So we have had families, whether it's the student themselves or the family, offering to help out in that manner. And it does keep costs down when we don't have to pay other people to do that. So that practice is still in place. Wanted to take the opportunity right now just to call out a couple of other changes that have occurred, or one celebration and one change. Policy JJJ on extracurricular eligibility was approved upon consent at our last board meeting, not because there was a substantive change in the language of the policy, which still requires that students pass all of their courses and maintain a 2.0 or a C average, but in the regulation, Victor, to the next one, please. Winter coaches have always expressed concern that they sort of get caught at the beginning of the semester because those semester grades matter. Their student athletes sit the 2 weeks of winter break, and then they were having to sit another 2 weeks after that. And unlike at the beginning of the school year when we kind of rev up to competition, winter sports hit competition oftentimes the Monday we get back from winter break, competition that counts. So at the time in 2014, we said, okay, maybe the kids will just need to sit that 2 weeks of winter break, and then they would become eligible as soon as we check grades on that Monday back from school. I will have to confess that this was a change that backfired, because while many of our athletes do participate over the 2-week winter break, and they did have to sit that time, our younger students do not. And so what that was being internalized as was, oh, the December grades don't really matter because you'll be eligible as soon as you come back. That is absolutely not the message that we intended to make, and no matter how many coaches, athletic directors, assistant principals, parents tried to stress that it was the grades that most counted, in terms of eligibility, they saw it as we get to start fresh. So the change that was part of the regulation that went to first read 2 board meetings ago was that at the beginning of each semester, fall and winter, a student who is ineligible will be considered to be ineligible for competition until that subsequent check of grades is conducted on the second Friday following the start of each new semester. What that does mean, more for winter sports, is that students are probably going to miss quite a few competitions if they don't meet our high standard of expectations at the end of the semester. So thank you for making that change and working with us. And then finally, I wanted to slip this in here a little bit. AIA membership requires that all participatory schools go through an accreditation process. The only accreditation agency that currently AIA recognizes is Advanced Ed, which used to be known as North Central. So last year, Mr. Costello, Desert View, Ms. Flores, Starr, I'll have the next slide, all went through the Advanced Ed process, Sunnyside High School as well. Happy to report to you, because I don't know if we did do service at the time, that all 3 schools received maximum accreditation from the Advanced Ed, which clears us through the year 2022. Once again, the maximum period allowed, and just a couple of accolades, because they give you sort of areas of focus and areas of what they call powerful practice. And I did want you to know that Sunnyside was acknowledged for their powerful practice of being committed to implementing a continuous improvement process. The next one is Star, I believe. Ms. Flores, you remember, they acknowledged what they saw as a very positive and powerful culture that supports every aspect of the school operation. And then finally, Desert View High School's powerful practice was in creating a culture where the belief is that all students can successfully reach their post-secondary goals. Bringing it back full circle, the final slide takes you back to the request for the evening, the action of the evening, to please finalize a maximum family contribution so we can make sure you get that in the athletic handbook and make sure our schools are aware that we're communicating that to our students as well. So thank you very much.
Mr. Howell, would you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt it. I got a question though.
Of course.
I have a quick question. for that student, for whatever reason, cannot come up with the $60, and the word gets out that they cannot participate, is that correct or incorrect?
What we've communicated to the schools is that all of the paperwork, physical, all of that needs to be done before students are
Correct.
practicing. We have told the schools that they need to have conversations, they need to pay the fee or have a conversation about the fee before they're able to participate in the first competition.
Okay.
So that's why what was communicated to coaches, and can certainly be reiterated, is that if a student cannot pay the fee, generally they go to the coach first. I mean, we could say the
Right.
assistant principal, they go to their coaches.
Coach.
And then the coach will facilitate the discussion to allow them to participate while a payment plan or some sort of contribution is worked out with the family.
Okay. Now, has the family been informed of this information as well?
Of the fee or
Yeah.
of the ability to do this?
Actually, the ability to be able to participate if they don't have the money, because that's the word that I've gotten.
Okay,
The
I
word is out.
wanted to check on that. The
Yeah,
word
that-
is that they can't
They
participate.
cannot participate unless they pay the fee,
Actually compete or even practice.
compete.
Okay. I
Because
will make
practice,
sure.
I'm aware that, they can,
Right.
but to participate in an event. And that's what I would like for them to be able to participate until, whether they you have a payment plan or whatever, not to have the students sit out for whatever reason,
Okay.
if they don't have the money to participate.
I-
Because, you folks have done, I think, a pretty good job of putting this together.
Thank you.
And I thank you for that, because it's the communication piece that hasn't gone out to the families, and some of the schools' powers to be as well.
Yeah, it's difficult because
Yes.
I think we are communicating that money is an issue.
Right.
And so that we did want coaches to try to help in conveying the message that, students do need to contribute. And I can see how that might have been interpreted as no gray area to that. So I will make sure that we go back and communicate to coaches that if they have students who are having difficulty coming up with the funds, they need to be referred immediately
Right.
to the assistant principal.
And I do like that plan where the student can actually work a little extra
Yeah.
to earn that. I think that's an important piece as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, and again, handled with a great deal of respect. I remember we talked about that, just with, maybe you don't want to work, if you're a football player, you don't work the football games, maybe you come call lines for the volleyball team. That's a
There you
great
go.
bit of help.
So we have some more discussion.
thank you.
Ms. Dawn?
Just really quick, and once again, also thank you for all the work that you've been putting into these areas here. I really appreciate it, making it more accessible to all of our students and their families. Is there something that is sent home to the families that say, this is how much it costs for each individual, and multiples, and then the other three dots that are there? Is there like a paper that goes home to the families that they can actually see all these costs and opportunities of what they can do if they can't afford the $60?
Good question. What was brought to the board the last time was simply the statement that goes home that has to do with letting parents know that they have to pay fees in order for an activity to be tax credit eligible. And that doesn't have any sort of a breakdown. The coach's handbook does, but generally, they don't see that, because there's a parent section to the coach's handbook, but they don't always see that until their students are involved with the team.
Right.
So I think that's an area where we can improve as well.
I think for communication purposes, and then, because there might be some kids that never see that because they never
They think they can't
realize.
afford it to do it.
Right, and so
Sure.
they don't even try to, go out for any of the sports because they think that they're just not going to be able to.
Right.
Without realizing that there's actually an opportunity for them to be able to participate.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, NJ.
Mr. Hernandez?
Thank you, Ms. Utter. One of the questions that I had is, when we were looking at this population that said, well, you get a fresh, clean slate at the beginning of the next year, how big of a student base was that was not eligible if we were to, change the policy? So how many students would we be affecting with this update in policy? Do we have an idea?
I don't know. I can certainly get you that information and send it maybe through a Friday board
be
report,
great.
because we do have the data going back several years of eligibility for all sports throughout the school year, not only tracking them during their season, but throughout the entire school year. It's really more anecdotal. And I am proud to say that many of the winner coaches who I was concerned would struggle with the going back to the policy the way it was, have actually been very supportive about the fact that, again, it was mostly younger students who were not really understanding the importance of the December grades.
Right.
So I will get you that data. Our eligibility data is not bad, but I just think that if there was one student that the perception was the December grades don't matter, when of course my counseling background, and you all
Right.
know, those are the grades that matter the most,
Right.
that was one student too many.
Wonderful, because I know that, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Mr. Crouch. I know that's one of the things that I had heard when we were talking about this in the past, so I'm glad that we're making this change, so thank you for
Yes.
bringing that forward. The last question may not be for you, maybe Mr. Encina's question. How much money do we actually generate from the parent contribution or the family contribution? Because that was something that I got asked, and I didn't know the answer, so I was wondering if we have, how much of the total program is actually supported by these fees versus what the district actually puts in to be able to have these events and these programs?
Offhand, I don't know. It's over $100,000, but I'll get you that information for the next board meeting.
That'd be wonderful, thank you.
Mr. Holmes, and then Mr. Armel.
Just for some clarification, and go back to a point Mr. Jaramillo made in terms of communication, and echo Ms. Gong. Part of the challenge is the management of the athletic fee structure is somewhat of a nightmare. I just want to make sure, I don't want to downplay, I mean, trying to collect the fees is quite frankly, a little bit of a mess. And so what's happened, and this comes from our end, and so we got to take ownership. I want to explain a little bit of why you may be hearing some of these stories anecdotally. We put a lot of pressure on our coaches to collect the fees because it does sustain our ability to maintain the programs. What gets lost in translation as we become much more on top of things with our coaches and say, because we've got coaches that coach, but not good at managing all these fees. And so as we put more pressure on them, they certainly put more pressure on the kids. And so what's heard, quite frankly, is this idea, I got to collect the fees, I'm going to need it, so you guys need to bring your fees. And so what gets lost is those great kids who are really needing some support. So I just want to explain a little bit about kind of why we get to where we're at. And many of these times, one is we change the fee structure fairly significantly. So that's one big thing that impacts our community. But secondly, because the reason we changed the fee structure is because we needed the money to sustain the programs that we currently have. And so what gets twisted in that conversation is the need to sustain the programs and the need to collect the money. And so it is very likely that sometimes the coaches forget to kind of talk a little bit more about those hardship cases because we're on them so much for getting the money. And I mean, with some of our coaches, we're on like every week, did you collect the fees, you collect the fees, and so I think that's part of the dynamic you're seeing. So I just want to be clear, and for the plug, we know how that kind of plays out in real time, because it is quite of a challenge.
I also wanted to remind you that in prior years, we did not make the fee a tax credit donation. And so one of the things that we did to try to defray the cost per family was make sure that when the fee was paid, that the students are getting the receipt so that they can get those fees back as a tax credit donation. The problem is, if I give my fee before I've made the team, it's almost impossible to get that fee back until the tax credit comes in. So what we did is we said, everything has to be in before you practice, except don't pay the fee.
Okay.
But then once you've made the team, the window between making the team and absolute competition got really short. And so I think it then ended up with people really saying, okay, well, now I need you to pay the fee. Now you need to get in there and pay the fee because we compete in 2 weeks.
Mr. Armel?
And I do want to mention that some of the coaches do take it upon themselves to pay those fees.
They pay the fees themselves.
More than what people are led to believe.
A lot of them.
That comes out of their pocket.
Yep, as does meal money.
Right.
As does
Yes.
several other things. So we know that
They-
we're in
they
a
go
position
over-
right now where we
over
need
and
to
above.
support. Absolutely.
What they have to do. And another thing on the eligibility,
Yes.
I don't think the word gets out or it gets explained to them, the incoming freshmen, because when it comes down to the 4.5 week grading, a lot of them are sitting out for an additional
For the
2
next 2
weeks.
weeks.
Yes, and I think that has to be instilled, hey, this is credit-based. If you aren't passing your classes, for whatever reason, you're not gonna play,
Right.
period.
Right.
And they get caught up in that scenario. So that word can get out to the,
And I think
Coming in.
a couple of changes that we're making this year, again, was the fact that we've gone back to the athletic compliance officer, so really making sure that that person is putting a great deal of emphasis on working with the students as opposed to handling some of the management aspects of athletics. And the other thing that we were just talking about is we are rostering students to coaches in a 7th period, non-credit bearing class, so that coaches can look into Power School just like a parent can, just like a teacher can, and see all of the students who are in their athletic programs throughout the school year. So instead of relying on somebody else telling the coach that some of their athletes are not doing well, they're going to have the ability to go in and check routinely so that they can talk to you. You may be a baseball coach, but you can follow your students' progress right now throughout the
Right.
entire year.
and a lot of that, what happens is a young man or young lady might do well during that sport, but then they
That's-
fall off the edge afterwards.
Right, so that's where I think we've had a lot of conversation, we'll continue to have conversation with coaches about the fact that they need to be monitoring
Throughout the year.
And they didn't always have that student contact or ability to see how kids were doing. So we're
Right.
hoping that'll make a positive change.
And they can also check on their attendance.
Yes, those are the
Yes.
two, those are really what we've held out as the data for our ACOs, is grades
Or
and
attendance.
attendance for all students who are involved in athletics and activities.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Sutter.
Thank you very much. Motion?
Any other discussion? Mr. Arndale?
Make a motion to accept the athletic update,
Maximum family contribution.
maximum family contribution.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr.
Well done.
Thank you.
Mr. Hernandez.
Aye.
Mr. Catania.
Yes.
Ms. Quintero.
Aye.
Mr. Crouch.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is Sunnyside Unified School District 2017-18 property tax rate. Mr. Encinas? Thank you, Mr. Crouch, board members, Superintendent Holmes. The Pima County Board of Supervisors has set the 2017-18 property tax rates for all governmental jurisdictions, including school districts. And the Pima County Treasurer's Office will be sending out property tax bills in mid-September. Sunnyside's total tax rate will be increasing from 5.5498 per $100 of assessed valuation to $7.7009 cents per $100 of assessed valuation, a 2.72% increase. In comparison to 13 other school districts in Pima County, we rank as the 6th lowest total tax rate and the 4th lowest primary tax rate. The tax rate is a factor that results based on the value of the property within the school district. Our assessed valuation in comparison to similar sized school districts is low when you look at Amphi, Marana, and Vale. And this basically results in having to have a higher tax rate to pay off bonds and overrides than if we had a higher assessed valuation. In fact, if we had Amphi's assessed valuation, our debt service tax rate would not be $1.4964, it would be 43 cents. Our total tax rate would not be 5.701, it'd be 5.279. So assessed valuation is key in terms of the tax rate. It's also a factor in being able to sell bonds, because the amount of bonds that you can sell is based on a percentage of your assessed valuation of the property in the district. In our case, our assessed valuation gives a capacity of being able to sell about $127 million worth of bonds potentially, whereas Amphi's got a potential bonding capacity of $442 million to be able to sell bonds. So again, one of the things that's been created by the legislature in their lack of addressing capital needs, as you recall, there was a lawsuit filed that basically for a while terminated school districts' responsibilities to build and pay for new schools and improvement to schools. But with the lack of resources, then they said, okay, we'll allow you to now start selling B bonds. A bonds are no longer allowed, but you can sell B bonds. So B bonds are the one, have taken the place of A bonds, which again has perpetuated that the school district with more wealth will be able to address the needs of their schools in terms of capital. Other than that, just an informational item for the governing board, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
I'd like to make an observation. I spent a little time out on looking at the archives for the Tucson Daily Citizen, looking at our tax rate for various years. I couldn't find them all out there, but the ones I found were like 1953. Tax rate was 7.248. Okay, people want to go back to the good old days. Right. Okay, yeah, that's fine. In 1954, it was 5.9. 1957 was 6.98. 1958, it was 8.49.
Wow.
And 1971, it was 8.5. 1997, 10.64. So, you know, a lot of times when we're we're questioned by our constituents about why is our tax rate so high, you know, let's go back to the good old days. Well, let's talk about those good old days. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out, just kind of a point of reference, that we're not raising our tax rate so far above what it was in the past. It actually is lower than it has been in the past. So.
And that was before equalization too. In other words, basically a school district back before 1980, a school district had no limits as far as how much money, what the tax rate they could be. You could basically, you know, establish a tax rate that you felt, hey, I need to generate X amount of dollars to pay for X number of salaries. There was no equalization, in other words. The wealthier the school district, the more taxes you could generate. There was no equalization, and that was stopped back in 1980.
Good info.
Any more discussion from the board?
I had a quick question.
Ms. Stone?
Something that you alluded to and has always had me curious. You know, way back in the day, at least 10 years ago, not back in the day you were talking about, but we used to have property tax that we would then get and use it to build schools, use it to fix schools. And then the state came up with that great idea of let's put it all together and then we'll give you some money to fix your schools. We'll give you, you know, that kind of stuff.
Building renewal and the school facilities board.
Right.
And
And that never worked well for us in this district. Well, it worked a little bit at the very beginning.
Yes.
And then after the very beginning, it stopped working for us. What happens to that money now? Is that money still going away from us into that fund?
that's the lawsuit that really is going to be filed or has been filed in regards to the district additional assistance reduction that the state has been withholding capital monies for building renewal. That's part of that lawsuit. And if it ever gets settled or addressed in court and settled, it'll mean some additional capital monies for school districts.
Yeah, because it just doesn't seem fair that they keep taking our money and they haven't really helped us in any which way in the last few years.
The other thing, one last comment, is the fact that we have a lot of tax exempt property within the school district. We've got the Tucson International Airport that's tax exempt. We've got Raytheon. All the U.S. Air Force Plant 44 property is tax exempt. So just imagine if we had that on the tax rolls, what our assessed valuation could be.
How can we do that?
I don't know. I mean, you're talking about another governmental entity, U.S. Air Force and the city of Tucson. The Tucson International Airport is owned by the city of Tucson, so taxing another governmental jurisdiction is not allowed. Somebody had mentioned always, how about putting a tax on airplane tickets, $1 an airplane ticket, generate some revenue that way? Possibly could do that if you enter some legislation. It'd be a revenue source for school districts impacted by airports.
I understand a little bit more about the complexity at the Tucson International Airport, but what about Raytheon?
Raytheon pays property on property that is quote-unquote owned by Raytheon. So if they build a building and it's owned by Raytheon, it's taxed. All the personal property that they buy as Raytheon is taxed. But the way they get around it is that they have the government pay for it, and then they lease it back.
Okay.
And
Mr. Davis?
Mr. Martinez, and the term of that agreement is quite a lengthy one, if I'm not mistaken. Is it 50 years, 100 years?
I have no idea.
Any further discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Next item on the agenda is new district enterprise resource planning system, Envisions, software update. Mr. Encinas and Dr. Berger.
You convinced me. Thank you, Mr. Crouch, board members, Superintendent Holmes. Dr. Berger will be making this presentation. No.
We're going to share this. Go ahead.
As the board is well aware, we've invested a large amount of resources into the acquisition and implementation of a new enterprise resource planning software, which is basically defined as a large-scale software program designed to aid the flow of internal business processes between HR, benefits, IT, payroll, accounts payable, purchasing, and fixed assets. And this will allow for better communication between those different departments and improved data flow between the departments. So we now have one system that's integrated, that's able to talk to each other amongst the various departments. And on August 9th, 2016, the governing board did approve that we purchase the new program from Tyler Technologies. We purchased iVisions, and the initial contract that we awarded, or the board awarded to Tyler Technologies was in excess of $672,000. After that, we realized that price of $672 included the subsequent year's support service cost and renewal costs, which should not have been included in the initial acquisition cost. So we came back to the board, corrected that initial award, and reduced it from the $672,000 down to the $532,925. And since that day, training for HR and the business department personnel has been taking place since November of 2016. Our staffs have gone through a very vigorous training process, and
Well, talking about the learning curve and the training that we've had to.
and we've had some bumps. I mean, we'll be honest about it. It's a learning process that we've gone through. We've trained our site personnel this past summer, and some of the issues that came up when we went live, July 1st, 2017, we went live and went through accounts payable, processing of a voucher and paying bills for our vendors, processing our first payroll voucher. We've had a formatting text issue with the way our files were formatted to interface with the county's IT and finance department. And a fix was identified, a temporary fix was identified, where we send our text files to Tyler Technologies, iVisions, they reformat it, send it back to us, then we send it to the county, and then the county accepts them. So at this point, we've been able to process our vouchers. That fix will be addressed and solved with the new version of the software that's coming out third quarter, called Q3. And we'll be converted to that in 2 weeks, September.
Yeah.
So that issue will go away. What is the other issue as far as the substitutes?
Well, the substitute issue of being able to have iVisions talk to ASAP has been a bit of a challenge for us right now, because in working, I have to share with you that this has been such a team effort between IT, Mr. Baca, Mr. Irwin, Mr. Encinas, his team, which consists of Ms. Maloney and Mr. Kamak, and my team, which consists of Ms. Emsley and myself. And between all of us trying to troubleshoot and figure out what it is that we have to do differently has been time consuming, but as a team, we've been able to work through that.
and Mr. Irwin trying to find ways to help these systems talk to each other. And we don't know that it's going to happen until we actually get into the thick of it. And right now, we're trying to work out a fix for ASAP because it works in other districts. It's able to draw in the information and then pull it into what we need for payroll. So they're all fixes that we know can happen. It's just going to take us time to put them into place. We, as Mr. Encinas shared, our payroll, what are we on? Number 3, number 4? Number 4 payroll. That's coming up next week. We have a supplemental pay.
4-1 this Friday.
That's the 4-1? The supplemental pay for teachers for the rubric and the 301, and then next week is a pay. And one of the things that we've had to look at since we started July 1 is all these we'll have a regular payday, supplemental pay, regular payday, supplemental pay. And each one has been very time consuming because what we have to do on our end and the learning curve as well as how to do this. And then the individuals who are learning as we go along can be challenging. So we're constantly going back and forth between the two departments to correct errors or to find a missing person or to ensure that everybody who should be in there is in the database. And so, but, it's challenging, but I think it has helped us as a team become more cohesive about communication and what it is we need to do differently in the future to have that happen. The other piece is benefits. We let go of Advantage Express, which did a lot of that data entry for us. So benefits has been a new challenge because we've had to take on that role. And with 3 new individuals in benefits, Ms. Emsley has had to take on a lot of that. But he's helped. And IT has really helped with Mr. Baca and Mr. Irwin with their expertise and what it is that we have to do to ensure that benefits came out for the first time last week. We were prepared for the questions that would come in, for people realizing, oh, did I pick that? Was that really what I picked? And the cost behind it. And so, and moving forward with the benefits piece and educating them. So it's going to be a continuous process for us until we get all those pieces in place. But as I shared with everybody last Friday, we need to be proactive about it. We come up to a situation and then we brainstorm, figure out a solution, try it. If it works, great. And if it doesn't, then we're back working with iVisions and our team to figure out what it is we need to do differently. And working with iVisions, sometimes it can be challenging, but sometimes it can be very productive.
And we meet every Friday as a
Every
group.
Friday.
Every Friday afternoon, the team court, a group of the school district, just myself, Dr. Bergman, Mr. Baca, Mr. Irwin, Mr. Kamak, and Ms. Maloney, and Laura Emsley, meet every Friday to update, see how it went that week, what problems we came across, what do we need to do to solve that problem. And we're all looking forward to when we fully implement that all the bugs are out. And we have to also educate our users. I mean, what are the newest features that the iVisions software is that website portal where an employee can just log in on the website to My Workflow and look at and change information regarding withholding, dependents, exemptions, the state withholding, the federal withholding. They can look at the benefits, what did they sign up for. So rather than have to call benefits or call the payroll, say, I need to change my W-4, my dependent withholding, they can do it themselves online. So,
which is a new piece for us then, because then in HR, what we have to do on a weekly basis is we have to download those changes and make sure that they're uploaded so that payroll then realizes what those changes are before they move forward with cutting checks and looking at deductions. So a step that we didn't do before, but we have to do now. So we're in the process of training everybody there to have a roll-in. It's your turn to do that download and make sure that the new information is put into the system and that payroll knows that. So again, team effort and what it is that we have to do that we didn't have to do before. But it's great for the employees because they don't have to wait for a person. They can actually make those changes on their own. Portal is a great place.
Ms. Quintero?
So can they just make one change during the year, or they can change it whenever they wish?
Right now, we've got an open season, and they can change it from week to week.
Week to week?
Yeah, but I think we're gonna limit that, because otherwise our department's gonna go crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
We're gonna go to this week.
And we really haven't closed, the only thing that has closed is benefits. We had open enrollment in May, and you cannot go in and adjust and change your benefits, because legally we have to have that period of open enrollment, and we keep it, unless you have an event that happens in your life that allows you to make those changes. But the portal has been open, and we haven't really closed any windows or doors on it yet, because we're trying to give the employees the opportunity to learn how to go in and do this. Because phone numbers can be updated, addresses can be updated, their credentials can, lots of things can be updated that they then can take responsibility for. But eventually, yes, we do have to put some closure and dates.
Mr. Alamo?
Now, has the employee been educated on this? On how to get online and?
We sent out a blast to all employees in the Public Relations Office, give them information on how to go on the website. Also, some webinars that have been
created.
prepared.
They've been created. And during, Laura, what is it called that we had in open enrollment? It was called, everybody had to go into. Register. Yeah, everybody had to go in and register in the new portal. And we did that purposely so everybody could set up their username, could set up their password, but we are looking at, and Mr. Baca, you might want to, we're looking at redoing that so that it aligns to what their current username, because they forget their password because they use something different. So we're looking at updating the directory, correct? And I think we finally finalized when we're going to do that. Because we're all like, no, we don't want to. Because we know they all have to go back in and do that. But I think Mr. Baca shared with us on Friday the importance behind why we needed to do that. And it would enable everybody, because we're finding some people who chose not to do insurance, even though they were asked to go to the portal, didn't register. Now we're trying to catch them up, even though they were told, you must register for the portal. There's always those few.
Well, there's always they're leery about getting on it because of the knowledge that they have.
Yes.
And we might have some of those.
And we're catching those as we go through the process, and the the benefit specialists are walking them through, showing them where the information is, showing them where to go in the benefits, to watch the webinars, to be able to, it's really a very easy.
Is it user-friendly?
It's very user-friendly, very user-friendly. And it's user-friendly to go back in and then start just working through it and clicking through and not being afraid just to click, and to see what's there. Did you want to come in? Directly?
Yeah. So as with anything, any changes like that are difficult, especially a large system change. We've gone through our changes in the past when we've moved our entire network to a Google Mail infrastructure, and that's fraught with learning curves and frustration. But we've made it a priority to build as many training resources through our trainer, getting information out, and giving them quick videos to follow how to do these things, so that they feel and they know where they can go to if they have a question. So the registration piece was a little bit of a transitionary pain, but now we're deciding to move it, so take one step further towards making everything a single sign-on environment, so that they don't have to have a separate login piece of information for this portal, in addition to their PowerSchool login information or their email login information. It's all being synchronized to the same database. So that's the next big, I guess I would call it big step, the step we're taking to help make it as user-friendly for everybody. So that's that piece was thinking about.
And what I'd like to do is thank you folks for going that extra mile to taking care of the people that were affected by it, and especially the ones who were expecting a paycheck and for whatever reason.
That's what I told my people when we went to 410s, and we came up for 410s. They went to 512s. They did go to 512s.
Yeah. They've been very long days. Yes. Very long days, but they've been very committed in putting in that time.
Thank you, and thank them.
Thank you.
Ms. Stone?
Yeah, I think the employees really like that portal. It is very user-friendly, and they're able to go in there and find out all their information without having to make phone calls or without wondering and waiting. they can just go in there and easily, especially the certified staff, I know it's really, really simple for them to go and find out all kinds of information about themselves and what they're waiting for and stuff like that. Is it also there for the classified staff?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
All employees.
That's
All
great,
employees.
yeah, because it just seems like it's really, really
All
user-friendly.
employees. If you're a district employee, you
got it
yourself,
there.
You're in
you're in
there.
there.
And as far as the iVision is concerned, I know there's some growing pains, and it's the way it is with pretty much anything when you try to implement something new. In the school sites, you're trying to implement a new curriculum. There's going to be all kinds of moans and groans at the beginning as they're trying to get used to it and trying to understand it a little bit better. So I'm sure in your departments, there's a little bit of pain, and some other things and what has to happen. But I do appreciate also, like Mr. Jaramillo was saying, that when an area, an issue does arise, you guys jump at it and do what you can to make sure that it's not going to negatively affect the employee.
Especially when it comes to pay.
Especially when it comes to pay. I really appreciate that because sometimes that's what they're waiting for, just before that weekend so they can then get themselves and their children ready for school and stuff like that. So I really appreciate that you jumped in there and you did whatever brainstorming you needed to do to get that done. And I appreciate all the hard work that all your employees are putting in, trying to learn it. And I know it's hard, and I know that there's frustrations and things like that happening. But little by little by little, I think at the end of the day, the iVision, and at least that was our vision, that the iVision would at the end of the day make things more seamless. And that's what we needed in all of your departments. We needed things to become more seamless.
I mean, we shared what the contracts are going to look like next year, but we have templates in, do some tweaking, and then e-PARS is our next step, which will help eliminate some paper and hopefully the tracking system to be able to find out where they are and the timeline for moving them faster through the process.
Right, so I'm looking forward to that. I know this is the beginning of it all, and so there are going to be some learning curves and some difficulties, but I think at the end of the day, we made the right decision. It's just a matter of getting everybody going on it and learning together and learning as a group and working together differently as a departments than you have in the past. And so, so thank you, and thank all your employees for doing what they're doing.
Patience and support, yeah.
Oh, he did. Mr. Holmes?
Hang out a little bit, guys.
Hector's reading the rush right now.
When should we anticipate the e-PARs being completed? That's a big deal with PARs sitting on people's desks and people waiting.
Prepared and said they were prepared.
Or either way.
That's.
Exactly.
So what are we looking for?
We're looking at start of the second quarter, having e-PARs in place and being able to move forward. We need that time to be able to train everybody on them, working through the process, but the start of the second quarter, we want to have e-PARs being kicked in and utilized. October, yeah.
And what about the time track system? Because that's still technically, there's some glitches there. What's the ultimate goal of the time track and our ability to not have timesheets that we have to submit in a certain point in time, which ends up getting submitted late by other departments? That's the quandary. So we have Title I, who needs to submit it by Monday, and they get submitted on Tuesday, and then people are wondering why they didn't get paid.
So as part of this, just step one step back, this allowed us to modernize so many behind-the-scenes systems that communicate to each other, but modernizing it takes time. It's not a flip of a switch that we can immediately say our time track piece is perfectly integrated with Visions. I want to instill confidence in all of you to know that our staff, our expertise that we have in-house will, without a doubt, solve all the little transitionary programming needs that we need in order to do that. What you were referring to, Mr. Holmes, our time track piece, we've just completed implementing an electronic signature process so that every employee has the ability to see what their time clock, current time punches are. And at the end of every pay period, Monday morning, effectively, the employees will go in there and electronically sign it. So that's going to improve, we're eliminating a very tedious paper-based dependency in that process and making it electronic. but also still maintaining the verifiability, if that's a word, of the system. And so that immediately it makes the whole system much more efficient and avoids some of the delays related to having to collect timesheets and sign them and have multiple people sign them. And so, but that wouldn't have been possible without us investing in Visions with your support and being able to modernize pieces. The piece that I feel most excited about is that we now have a modern back end of our system, pieces that can speak together very seamlessly. With after our previous system, we could not seamlessly connect to that data. So we couldn't build an interface to have our time track piece automatically feed the payroll piece. And now we can. So that's a huge leap forward for the long-term efficiency of the district. And I think we'll only start to see more and more benefits as time passes, but we are still in that growing, learning place.
Just one part that wasn't touched upon, but right now all requisitions are done electronically, correct? So nothing's done on paper, everything is done electronically, and they're approved and denied.
And there's a pathway that the requisition goes through, and what happens, you can see where somebody's holding their approval. In the system, where's the requisition actor for, is that on my screen? It's still in the prior approver.
The PARs will take a similar view.
Yes.
That means, so what we see in our requisitions going on, we can take notice of the PARs, who's holding it, or has it even been generated at all.
And it's a new process for people to remember, oh, I've got to go into my pathways. And I should, I've been working with it, but even I tend to, my assistant has to say to me, you got to go in and do your, improve your requisitions. Oh, yeah.
And iVision sends you a message, an email saying you have requisitions to approve.
And so it's something you should do on a regular basis. Mr. C, this is reminded, you need to do that first thing every morning, Deb. Okay. So it's become, you have to have a habit of doing that.
Could you remind me of our solution for the substitute benefit issue?
We weren't the only district because of the passage of 206.
Okay.
iVision's built in a process and a system within their system to help track that. And so what's happening, and you guys have already put that into place in payroll. Payroll is a department that oversees their accrual process for our employees. So when a sub is pulled from ASOP to be working, then that information is pulled into iVision so that accruals can then start happening. And you guys already put it in place. Yeah, I
heard found out there was some issues, but yes, but electronically, that's a process where we can now keep track electronically of the sick leave accumulations, accruals for substitutes.
And as I shared with Mr. Holmes, the second piece that we have to do, and I need to bring forward, is the criteria. There was no criteria established about how and when you could take it. And one of the things that we are looking at in our network is talking to the other districts about what criteria they're utilizing to say, well, you can use it, when you can use it and how you can use it. So we're in the process of talking with our neighbors and saying, what criteria are you putting into place? And looking at the different criteria, and once we finalize what we want to bring forward, we'll share it with district leadership and then share it with the board to get your stamp of approval on the criteria of how substitutes can use that accrual time.
So we can call us up with this.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good solution. Ms. Quintero?
I have a quick question. So people can sign their time card electronically?
We'll be able to.
We'll be able to. And so if they're homesick and they can't get in to sign their time card, they can do it from home?
They're managers, so all department managers have a kind of a screen. So if they are sick, we would ask them to call in and let them know that, what are you, and it's the same as if they weren't at work. They would have to call in and say, these hours are correct, you can go ahead and submit it to payroll. And under those circumstances, we would sign on behalf of them, saying that spoke with employees such and such, they confirmed their hours are correct, and then we would submit it to payroll for payment. In this case, they don't have internet access home, we would ask them to do the same thing, their supervisor can go in there and basically click the button saying, I speak to that individual with verifying the hours. Once the supervisor verifies all the hours in that management screen, at that point, the electronic signature is submitted for payroll to be able to process payment on those verified hours.
So there's no way for somebody to just go in and just click, 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 and then they didn't show up, but they got paid anyway? Kind of deal?
If they, to verify it, I guess
I guess there's no, so somebody can't just go in and mess with their time card
No.
without them seeing?
Not at all. In fact, there's two layers of data that are managed, and those two layers are reconciled against each other. The actual punches within the time crack system, which is its own database, and you can only punch with your card. So there's that layer, and then there's the second verification of that, which is a separate database. And what we're doing in that process, we're saying, are these two numbers matching? Do you verify that those are your hours worked? And in most cases, it's 80 hours for the time period. And they're click yes. And by clicking yes, that is your electronic signature, just like you click yes on your contract to accept your contract. That's our electronic signature, because they've authenticated themselves by logging in with their unique username and their unique password. So that system is the verification process that allows us to verify the time worked. So, no, I mean, of course, I won't go into all the business possibilities that exist. If someone were to log in, if someone step away from the computer, someone could theoretically sit at their computer. But those pieces, we have other means of verifying. But yeah, we have it's a much better system than it has been in the past. It will be once we have everything work.
Thanks.
Mr. Alamo? Yes, one quick question. Since it is electronic and there's a surge or whatever, what kind of a backup system do we have?
Thank you. We have a very robust backup system, and I'll just give you a quick overview of it. All of our servers get backed up in 3 different locations. They get sent across to one of our high schools, either DB or Sunnyside. They get written locally, and they get written to what we call our disaster recovery site at Los Ranchitos. It's a room where there's a whole set of data disks that get written to all of our backups. We verified that the backup process works. And with those 3 layers of backup, I have give you every assurance that that is above and beyond what we normally would do, and we're very particular about it. We verify backup processes on a regular basis. I won't say weekly, but it's usually about once a month or so. We'll restore backup, make sure that it's viable. And so with those 3 locations, in fact, we've had to use it. We've had to use it to verify, like when we're in the process of implementing, one of our databases we weren't sure if there was a problem with the data, so we just went ahead and loaded the previous backup and looked at the 2 versions and said, okay. So that gives me the confidence that our backup systems are sound, and I give you those assurances as well. It's very robust backup process.
Thank you. More discussion from the board?
Just one more.
Ms. Quintero?
Just one. So if we had a bad storm and it knocked out power, we're safe?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We've had that scenario. And it wasn't a storm. Last storm, this summer, it was our AC unit freezing, which took down our central servers room here, and we didn't have to restore backup in that situation, but we were able to recover it back up to normal. And if we did have a problem here, we have our backup here that we verify. Yes, we are safe.
Okay, just checking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Stone?
Mr. Crouch, I would like to move that we recess into executive session authorized pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A1, discussion or consideration of employment, appointment, promotion, demotion, dismissal, and/or salaries of specified employees or appointments of individuals being considered for service, Director of Secondary Schools and SUSD 12 Employee Trust Board relating to the district's employee group health care benefits. And the appointee or appointees of public body who may be discussed during the personnel executive session set out above have received individual written notices about the executive session and the results of executive session.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. We'll move into executive session after a 5-minute recess. Thank you. Ms. Stone?
Excuse me?
Mackenzie, talk to you.
This was a lot shorter. I'd like to make a recommendation to approve the appointment of Mr. Jose Gastelum, Secondary Director of Schools at Curriculum and Instruction for the 2017-2018 school year, and be placed on step 15.
Second. We all want to say it.
Roll call?
Ms. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye, motion passes. Congratulations, Mr. Costello. Ms. Quintero?
I would like to make a recommendation to approve the appointment of Elaine G. Jones, a member of the Sunnyside Unified School District 12 Employee Trust Board for the 2017-2018 school year.
Second.
Roll call.
To be placed.
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye, motion passes. Congratulations. Is she here? No, she's not here.
I move that we adjourn.
Okay,
Oh, we have to do the,
are there any suggestions?
oh,
Not yet.
really good.
Are there any suggestions for future agenda items from board members? Ms. Quintero?
Well, we were at the mandatory reporting workshop this morning. So I got extra copies but I would like to see if we could match our policies that we have to the state's policies to make sure we're all on board, please. That's for Robert.
So, okay, are there any other suggestions for future agenda items? Mr. Amil?
No.
Ms. Dahl, you have a motion?
Yes, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Roll call.
Rusty.
Ms. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
In 2 weeks, we got Rusty.
Thank you all for being here.